Hi everyone, and this is my presentation about my essay bibliography. I have not started it properly, writing it. I just have a bibliography and ideas jotted down at this moment. The topic I chose was aikido, Bushido, and I will be talking about a martial art called aikido, known as the peaceful martial art. And in my essay, the main question I'm going to tackle is how has Aikido maintained its peaceful ethos in a global environment that often values aggression and spectacle? And as part of my essay, I'm going to focus a lot on the Western view of martial arts, because they're often imagined as violent, competitive, or self-defense oriented. So I will be using a practitioner's perspectives, especially my own, and historical and cultural research to address this question. And I want to start out by explaining why I chose this topic. And I've trained Aikido since I was 13 years old, and I've trained in three different countries in multiple dojos. I've trained in Norway, England, and Japan. So I have seen how different cultures interpret and teach the philosophy and ethos of Aikido in their own specific ways. And having trained for this long, I have often encountered, people who don't know what Aikido is. And when I tell them it's a martial art, their response is predominantly from the West is, oh, so you're good in a fight. Oh, so remind me not to piss you off, assuming that I'm dangerous or skilled in fighting due to training a martial art. And then I have to go out of my way to explain that Aikido isn't about fighting. It's about harmony, balance, and redirecting energy. And this gap between Aikido as I've experienced it and Aikido as I've seen imagined or presented to me through the Western lens is kind of what sparked my interest in this topic to do a presentation about. But before I'm going any further, I should probably tell you more detail what Aikido actually is. And as I mentioned, it is a martial art. It was created by Morihei Ueshiba in Japan. And he is often referred to as O-sensei, like the big teacher. It is a martial practice focused on non-resistance, redirection, and protecting both partners. During a regular training session, there's a lot of focus on rolling and rolling safely, falling safely, so that techniques can be practiced without causing any injury or harm. Aikido is also one of the few martial arts with no competitions or tournaments. Unlike judo or karate, kendo, Aikido has refused to shift towards being a sport, setting it apart from other global martial arts. And fun little facts about Aikido. I don't know if I will be including in my essay or not. Maybe, if it's appropriate with the rest of my research when it's done, is that in Aikido there are basically only two belt colors. There are white belts, and then of high enough grade you get a black belt, and the hakama, black pants. And the reason behind this is you were not supposed to wash your belts. You were only supposed to wash your gi, because if you washed your belt, you washed away your efforts. And eventually your white belt would become black through blood, sweat, and tears. And now we symbolically give you just an actual black belt to symbolize you trained for a long time. But in many different dojos and Aikido clubs, they say, please don't wash your belts. Just have 2 or 3 belts that you switch between, which I think it's interesting about the culture of people practicing Aikido. The name itself is built out of 3 kanjis. Ai, meaning peace, harmony. Ki, energy, spirit. And Do, which most of you will recognize from other maybe more well-known martial arts from Japan and the East, like Kendo, Judo, Kyudo, meaning a path away. And so Aikido is usually translated as the path of harmony, or the way of harmonizing energy. And in my essay, I will be using this book called A Martial Art, The Art of Peace by O-sensei Morihei Ueshiba. And it is a collection of Ueshiba's reflections and teaching. It emphasizes peace as the foundation of Aikido, and it is like really integral to O-sensei and how Aikido started. And to properly use this source, I felt like I needed a bit more view of who O-sensei actually was. And so we have Morihei Ueshiba. He was a politically right-leaning, pre-war militaristic person in Japan. And so his notion of peace was influenced by nationalism in his country at the time. So he was a complex figure. However, many of his quotes taken out from his book resonate with us today, speaking of peace, unity. And like they're often quoted in dojos, in grading, in Aikido events. And I noticed he's kind of been like idealized and potentially deified. Because when I was researching, I was genuinely surprised to learn about his political background. Because based on how he is talked about in training spaces, I would have assumed he was neutral or left-leaning, making me question a bit more like, oh, are we actually interpreting his words the way he intended for them to be interpreted, or are there any hidden interpretations within his talk of peace? So making it a potentially important question for my essay is, have we, the Aikido community, cherry-picked part of his ideology? Has he been mythologized in not just, Eastern, but like Japanese retelling, but Western too, retellings of Aikido's history? And if his teachings have been reinterpreted into something positive, or kept in turn with the tides, is it necessary or fair to judge his politics by modern standards and judge his philosophy based on his politics, potentially? So I think going into Morihei Ueshiba, like the creator of Aikido, is important for my question. Another that I mentioned is, of course, Western perception of martial arts. They are often shaped by, like, I would say predominantly by like combative sports like boxing or MMA, and their view of martial arts in the East seems to be based on the martial arts movies, kind of presenting all like martial arts as being really like mystical, magical, or extremely violent, like ninjas in some movies. And these different influences in media can shape how Aikido is misunderstood, or like martial arts can be romanticized or dismissed sometimes. And this tension could become central or really important to my essay when I finalize the final structure and read up way more on my sources rather than just, the text blurb. Another source I will be using is so this is not, I think this photo isn't actually from the book I'm referencing. I think maybe it is. It is about Bushido, the way of the warrior, and the Japanese cultural context. So one of my sources explores how Bushido was reinvented in modern Japan, and partially for more naturalistic purposes, and how Aikido's peaceful identity developed both in relation to and in contrast with that militarized culture. This helps explain how Aikido fits within Japanese martial traditions, while also, I think, diverging from it. And then we have another secondary source of mine, which I found especially fascinating. Talks about real Aikido. It's a post-war reinterpretation that fully rejects O-sensei's peaceful approach. Real Aikido emphasizes dominance, efficiency, and violence, showing how easily like a peaceful martial arts can be transformed into something violent and brutalized. It also kind of mirrors the Western expectations that martial arts should be combative or practical. And real Aikido is essentially a Japanese martial art redesigned to like kind of, I feel like, fit the Western view, even though I don't think that's what it wasn't. When it was brutalized, it was not brutalized specifically to fit a Western view, but I feel like it kind of fits into that in a weird conglomeration of perspectives. I can help illustrate how interpretations can shift dramatically. So I have this is the brief summary of like my sources. My primary source being like directly from the co-founder of Aikido, and my secondary sources being one about post-war organizational development, some about the Bushido history, like the way of the samurai, martial art anthropology, and then the real Aikido case study. And I have, of course, perspectives from me as a practitioner, and historical and textual analysis will be driven and used throughout my essay. So in my essay, I plan to explore, to conclude how Aikido's peaceful identity has been built, preserved, and sometimes reinterpreted, and how Western expectations shape modern perceptions of martial arts, and how contemporary Aikido practitioners, including me, navigate the gap between myth and reality in Aikido's philosophy. To conclude, I want to emphasize that Aikido remains a martial art defined not by fighting, but by the intention to transform conflict, both physical and internal, into harmony. And I want to really emphasize that I feel like the core of Aikido being the path of harmony, I feel like that has stayed consistent all through the years, and being peaceful. However, I want to go into more detail on how potentially the meaning of peace has changed through the years, but it is still the core aspect of harmonizing with the world around you that is the most important aspect of Aikido. And I want to thank you all so much for listening to me rant about my essay bibliography and potential thoughts of what this is going to be. And I'm looking forward to hearing any feedback from you on how I could improve and focus even more properly towards my essay main topic. So thank you all so very much.